Hello everyone. Today we will speak about the most important issue that Israel and Jews worldwide have to deal with. It is the most powerful tool that the anti-Israel community has. It was carefully crafted over the past 60 years or so. And it is amazing how this simple form of misinformation is working on the subconsciousness of so many people. I'm talking about terminology. I've addressed it a little bit in chapters 10, Occupation, and in chapter 11, Palestinian Lie. But my subscribers kept asking me to make a separate video just for this, so here we are. We have all heard the words Palestinian, West Bank, and occupation. These three words are the biggest enemies Israel has. To illustrate what I'm talking about, let's just look at what is happening in the information field right now. People use the word Palestinian when referring to Muslim Arabs in Israel, Gaza, Judea, and Samaria. Judea and Samaria is called West Bank, and finally Jewish presence in Judea is deemed to be an occupation. All of this is being done with the purpose of delegitimizing Israel's sovereignty in international law. Because of the usage of these words, there are talks about establishing a Palestinian state for Arabs. The UN, in which roughly a third of the countries belongs to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, makes sure that this terminology is being used worldwide. They insist on these words because if they had called the people what they really were, Muslim Arabs, the general public would connect the word Arab with Arabia. Plus the fact that most of them are the descendants of illegal immigrants to Palestine, international position would be on the side of Israel. This terminology is misleading. In the next few minutes, I will show you how it is incorrect factually. I've explained in my previous chapter that Palestine existed as a country from 1920 until 1948. The word Palestinian was born in international law bearing a meaning of a citizen of Palestine. See Article 7 of the Mandate for Palestine. Proof to what I'm saying is in Palestinian Citizenship Order of 1925. People living in Palestine lost their Ottoman citizenship and became Palestinians. If that's how one becomes a Palestinian, then surely this was not an ethnicity, right? Once Palestine was renamed to Israel, Palestinians became Israelis. End of story. Look at Yugoslavia, for example. When it existed, there were Yugoslavians. Now there is Croatia, Bosnia, Slovenia, Serbia, Macedonia, and Montenegro. We have Croatian, Serbians, and so on. But if Yugoslavia were a Jewish state, the UN would push to establish a state for imaginary Yugoslavians that lost their country. By the way, former Palestine was also split. It became two countries, Jordan and Israel. In international law, now we have Jordanians and Israelis. And yes, this is the two-state solution. The two-state solution that no one talks about. A very unfair one. 80% of Jewish lands were given to Arabs in violation of Article 5 of the Mandate for Palestine. UN keeps it under a rug. However, it is a fact. Two-state solution was implemented 100 years ago and it didn't work. Jordanian Arabs attacked Israel and illegally occupied Judea and Samaria, a very large area which they had renamed to West Bank. For more details on this, you may want to check Chapter 7 Jordan and Chapter 10 Occupation. In short, rewarding terrorism with a state is a mistake. History is not being taught properly and it's being hidden from the public. As a result, it is being repeated. Back to the word Palestinian. In 1964, the Muslim Arabs of former Palestine decided to hijack the Palestinian identity in order to further hijack the lands on top of the 80% that they have already taken. With the help of the UN, they have created an intersubjective reality where everyone in the world think that Palestinians exist as a unique and separate nation. Not only that, they believe that this nation's own unique and separate country is being occupied by the evil Jews. No one cares and no one knows that because Jordan occupied Judea and Samaria and Egypt occupied Gaza, PLO declared modern Israel as their land in 1964. But now they want Judea and Samaria and Gaza as their land. This is absolutely ridiculous. But let's go back to what we were saying about terminology. The phrase Palestine for Palestinians sounds logical. Anyone would agree with this statement. But as soon as we strip it of UN terminology, you get Israel is for Arabs. This one people wouldn't agree with. It works in reverse as well. Statement Judea is populated by Jews makes perfect sense. I agree with it. Load it with some UN language and you will have Jews are occupying West Bank. Ever since I learned this simple truth, I abandoned UN terminology. When UN imposes improper language worldwide, the general public, which is not an expert in history and international law, forms a faulty opinion about Israel. This is unfair since the public is trusting UN and sends them funds. Funds which are being sent over to Gaza where Hamas is using it in order to murder people, not only in Israel but also in Gaza. And then the UN sends more funds into Gaza to help the Gazans, but again it is being hijacked by Hamas. This cycle repeats for decades. To stop this, we need to educate ourselves on the conflict and on the terminology. Once we know what we are talking about and once we use the correct words, clean from UN terminology, this conflict would stop being complex. Look, Palestine was established in international law as a Jewish country. It existed from 1920 to 1948. Since 1948 there is no more Palestine, so there are no more Palestinians. Remember Yugoslavia. If there are no Palestinians, then there is no need for Palestinian state. Yes, in Palestine there were Arabs and there were Jews. But to help that, a two-state solution was already implemented 100 years ago. Jordan was established to favor the Arabs on the expense of the Jewish people. Whichever Arabs that are being called Palestinians by UN today already have a quote-unquote Palestinian state, Jordan. Judea and Samaria, in which Israel declared independence in 1948, was illegally occupied and cleansed of the Jewish population by the aforementioned Jordan. For 19 years between 1948 and 1967 it was illegally occupied. In 1967, during a defensive conquest war, Israelis liberated Judea and Samaria back from Jordan. Logically speaking, Jews can't occupy Judea, since logically Judea means where Jews live. Same like Germany is where, Germans live. Legally speaking, Jews do not occupy Judea and Samaria and Gaza, because Israel declared independence in those lands in 1948. This rule is called uti possidetis juris, meaning that new sovereign states declare independence in the internationally recognized borders of the previous geopolitical entity. That entity was Palestine. It is debatable if that was the Palestine of 1920 or Palestine of 1947, but the minimum is Palestine of 1947, which included Judea and Samaria and Gaza. Given that Palestine was established as a Jewish country, and given that Judea and Samaria are not on the border of former Palestine but in the very center of it, there should not be any talks of Jews illegally occupying Judea. And as of October 7th attack, Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Whoever yells stupid slogans like Hamas is a legitimate resistance against occupation is just being ignorant about the basic facts. On October 7th, 2023, Gaza was already free for about 18 years. Hamas is not fighting for freedom. But how could people know if they are using terminology imposed by UN? I would like to end this video with an advice. If you know what's good for you, and if you care about your freedom, use proper terminology and tell your friends and loved ones to do the same. Thank you for watching.